You know, every living thing, I mean everything from the tiniest insect to a massive blue whale, it all runs on a kind of fundamental blueprint. But how does that blueprint get passed on? Well, today we're diving into the absolutely incredible process of reproduction. Think of it as the engine that drives life itself, making sure the story of every single species keeps going generation after generation. Just think about that for a second. It's kind of wild, isn't it? A world with no new life. It really gets to the heart of why reproduction is so much more than just some biological process. It is literally the only thing standing between life on Earth and, well, a sudden, silent end. All right, so let's get into it. Section 1, the engine of life. We're talking about something that is, without a doubt, essential for survival. I mean, for any species to even have a future, it's got to solve this one huge problem. How do you make the next generation? I mean, just look at the incredible diversity of life out there. It doesn't matter if you're a microscopic organism or a blue whale, your species' entire journey forward hangs on one thing, passing that torch to the next generation. It really is the ultimate measure of success in the biological world. Without it, the line just stops. Game over. Okay, moving on to section 2. Two parents, one blueprint. So how do animals actually pull this off? Well, life has come up with two main strategies. We're going to start with the one most of us are familiar with, sexual reproduction, and that's a method that kicks off by combining the genetic blueprints from two different individuals. So the big difference here really just comes down to the number of parents. With sexual reproduction, you're shuffling the genetic deck with contributions from two parents. But with asexual reproduction, it's all about one parent making a copy of itself. Don't worry, we're definitely going to come back to that second one a little later on. Now, in a lot of animals, including us humans, this whole process depends on some really specialized systems. You can think of the male system as basically a factory that's constantly producing these tiny mobile cells called sperm. The female system, on the other hand, produces the much, much larger egg cells, or ova. And these eggs are packed with all the initial resources needed to get a new life started. The proper scientific term for these special cells is gametes. And this is the really important part. Each gamete, whether it's a sperm or an egg, carries exactly half of the genetic instruction manual needed to build a new organism. They're literally two halves of a whole puzzle. And just look at how different these two cells are. I mean, each one is perfectly designed for its job. The sperm is basically built for a mission. Its long tail is like a powerful motor, just driving it toward its target. The egg, though, is the complete opposite. It's huge, it's stationary, and it's loaded with all the fuel and instructions needed to kickstart everything the moment fertilization happens. Which brings us to section 3, from single cell to new life. So we've got the two halves of our puzzle. What's next? Well, now we have to put them together. This is the moment where two tiny, single cells start this absolutely extraordinary journey of becoming a brand new, complex individual. And this journey, it follows a very specific timeline. First up, you have fertilization. That's the big moment of fusion. This creates what's called a zygote, which is the very first cell that has the complete genetic blueprint. From there, things happen fast. That one cell starts dividing like crazy, turning into a ball of cells we call an embryo. And as those cells start to specialize and organize themselves, it develops into a fetus. And that's a stage where we can actually start to see the basic body parts of the new creature. Right here, this is the moment it all begins. Fertilization. A single sperm makes it through, it penetrates the egg, and their nuclei, which hold all that precious genetic information, they fuse together to become one. This brand new combined cell, that's the zygote, the very first cell of a new life. And that single cell does not waste any time. It immediately kicks off this incredible cascade of division. One cell becomes two. Two become four, four become eight. It just multiplies exponentially, forming a tiny ball of cells. And this rapidly growing little structure is the embryo.
But to keep growing, the embryo needs a lifeline. This is a critical step. It has to embed itself in the wall of the uterus. This is a real make-or-break moment, because this is what establishes the physical connection, the life support system, really, that's going to provide all the nourishment and protection it needs for the rest of its development.
Okay, on to section 4, nature's diverse strategies. So what we've just talked about, that's kind of the model for mammals. But, nature almost never settles for just one way of doing things. So now we're going to zoom out and check out the incredible variety of ways animals have adapted this basic blueprint all over the world. One of the biggest differences is simply where fertilization happens. For land animals like us, it's internal. It happens safely inside the female's body. But for tons of animals that live in the water, it's external. They just release their eggs and sperm right into the water and, well, hope for the best, really.
And here's another big split in how things are done. It's all about where the young actually develop. You've got viviparous animals, like us mammals, who keep their young safely inside and give birth to live babies. And then you have oviparous animals, like birds and reptiles. They package the whole embryo up in a self-contained little egg and let it develop and hatch out in the real world.
And this shows the difference perfectly. On one side, you've got the total safety and constant flow of nutrients inside the uterus. On the other side, you've got the incredible vulnerability of eggs developing out in the open, often protected by nothing more than a thin layer of jelly. Now, for some of these animals that hatch from eggs, the journey is just getting started. What comes out of that egg is not a tiny version of the adult. No, it's something completely different. This total, radical reinvention of its entire body is called metamorphosis. The frog is, of course, the classic example of this. It starts out as an egg, right? Then it hatches into this fully aquatic larva we call a tadpole. It's got gills, a tail, the whole deal. And then it goes through this mind-blowing reorganization of its entire body to become the jumping, air-breathing adult frog we all know. All right, final section, copies, clones, and curiosities. So everything we've talked about up until now needed two parents to mix their DNA. But what if you could do it all by yourself? Now we're going to look at that other strategy, asexual reproduction, and see how it led to some seriously groundbreaking, almost sci-fi level science. Check out this hydra. It doesn't need a partner at all. It just grows a little bud on the side of its body. That bud develops for a bit, and then pop! It just detaches and floats off as a brand new, genetically identical hydra, a perfect clone. So that idea, making a perfect copy, made a huge leap from simple little organisms to complex mammals back in 1996 with Dolly the sheep. Here's how they did it. Scientists took a regular body cell from one sheep. They took out its nucleus, that's the part with all the DNA. Then they took an egg cell from a different sheep and scooped out its nucleus, so it was basically an empty shell. Finally, they popped the first nucleus into that empty egg, and that created an embryo that was an exact genetic copy of the first sheep. So here you can see the three key players in this whole story. You've got the Finn Dorset sheep. She was the genetic donor. Her DNA was the blueprint. Then you have the Scottish blackface ewe, and she actually had two jobs. She was the egg donor and the surrogate mother who carried the baby. But here's the amazing part. The lamb they got, Dolly, had absolutely zero genetic material from her surrogate mom. She was a 100% perfect clone of that original Finn Dorset sheep. So our journey has taken us from the simple fusion of two cells in a pond all the way to the high-tech creation of a clone in a lab. It's just a stunning testament to how much we've learned about the blueprint of life itself. And it leaves us right here, staring at a pretty profound question. As our power to understand and even manipulate this blueprint gets stronger, what comes next?